Students, in the yesterday's session, we had discussed about Coulomb's inverse square law, a very important part of this chapter. According to Coulomb's inverse square law, Coulomb's inverse square law gives you the information about the force acting between two stationary point charges. So we shall recall the statement of Coulomb's inverse square law once. The electrostatic force of attraction or repulsion between any two stationary point charges is directly proportional to product of the magnitude of the two charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. We had even learnt how to represent Coulomb's inverse square law mathematically. We had learnt about a new term known as permittivity. Permittivity tells you about the ability of a medium to allow the electric lines of force to pass through it. Also, we had learnt about the absolute permittivity of free space, whose value is 8.854 into 10 raised to minus 12 coulomb square per Newton per meter square. Then about relative permittivity, which we represented as epsilon r. So relative permittivity for free space is equal to 1. Remember, for all other medium, epsilon r will be greater than 1. Also, we defined the SI unit of charge, which is coulomb. 1 coulomb is that charge which, when placed at a distance of 1 meter from a similar charge, repels it. In fact, in air or vacuum, 1 coulomb is that charge which, when placed at a distance of 1 meter from a similar charge in air or vacuum, repels it with a force of 9 into 10 to the power of 9 Newton. Then we also learned how to represent Coulomb's inverse square law, the force acting between the two charges, in vectorial form. We took two cases. In the first case, we considered like charges, and in the second case, we considered unlike charges. Today, we will start by defining relative permittivity, or what is also called as dielectric constant. Relative permittivity or it is also called as dielectric constant of a medium. In order to define relative permittivity or dielectric constant, I will consider two charges at points A and B. Let me call the magnitude of the two charges to be Q1 and Q2. They are separated by some distance r. Let us suppose initially these two charges are kept in air. So when I say they are kept in air, you know that relative permittivity will be equal to 1. Then, from the knowledge of Coulomb's inverse square law, the force acting between these two charges in air is given by, I will refer it as FA, that is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q1 Q2 by r square. Let me call this as equation 1. Now, I take the same two charges separated by the same distance apart into the medium whose relative permittivity or dielectric constant is to be defined. When I keep the same two charges at the same distance apart in the given medium, I will call the force acting between the two charges as F medium, Fm. It is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught epsilon r. Remember, now epsilon r is also included in the medium, because in the previous case we left over epsilon r because for air medium epsilon r would be equal to 1 into q1 q2 by r square. Let me call this as equation 2. Now if I consider the ratio of these two equations, if I divide equation 1 by equation 2, Fa by Fm is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into q1 q2 by r square whole divided by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught epsilon r into q1 q2 by r square. Students, observe carefully here that 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught gets cancelled because you find it both in numerator and the denominator terms. Also, q1 into q2 by r square also gets cancelled. You are left over with only epsilon r in the term in the denominator. Mind that it is in the denominator of the denominator. So you know that mathematically it goes to the numerator. So when you consider the ratio of the force between the two charges in air to the force between the same two charges at the same distance apart in the given medium, you are left over with epsilon r. That's what is called as relative permittivity or dielectric constant. Hence, we may say that relative permittivity is defined as the ratio of force between 2 point charges kept at a certain distance apart in air to the force between same two charges kept at the same distance apart in the given medium. So, relative permittivity or dielectric constant is defined as the ratio of force between 2 point charges kept at a certain distance apart in air to the force between same two charges kept at the same distance apart in the given medium. So mathematically I may write epsilon r, sometimes also represented as k, is equal to Fa by Fm. Mind that this relative permittivity, since it is the ratio of same two quantity, it is unitless and dimensionless. For air, relative permittivity is equal to 1. So we will have Fa by Fa for all other media. Epsilon R would be greater than 1. So this is about relative permittivity or dielectric constant. Next to this, we have to write down Coulomb's inverse square law. We have to represent the force between two charges in terms of position vectors. Force between two charges in terms of position vectors. In first year, you have learnt as to what a position vector is. Position vector always represents the position of an object or a point in a coordinate system. So now we will consider the position of two charges in a coordinate system. I will consider a coordinate system here. Here you have one charge q1 and here you have another charge q2. So these are represented with the help of, see, this is x-axis, it's a coordinate system. So y-axis, this is the origin. This is one position vector, vector r1. This is another position vector, vector r2. Vector r1 represents the position of the charge q1 in this coordinate system, and vector r2 represents the position of this vector of this charge q2 in this coordinate system. Also, we will consider that q1 and q2 are like charges. See, if q1 and q2 are like charges, you know that essentially a force of repulsion acts between them. So q1 will be repelled by q2 and q2 will be repelled by q1. Now I will consider the force acting on q1 due to q2. So you know that q1 is being repelled by q2. So I can represent that force. See, this will be the direction of the force. I will represent it in terms of a displacement vector r21, a vector directed from q2 to q1, because I repeat, this is the direction of the force acting on q1 due to q2. On the other hand, if you are writing down the force acting on q2 due to q1, then you would have represented this displacement vector from q1 to q2. Here you have to recall the triangle law of vector addition that you had learnt in first year. According to triangle law of vector addition, see, I have just illustrated it here. According to triangle law of vector addition, if two vectors of same kind are represented by the two sides of a triangle taken in an order, then the resultant is being represented by the third side of the triangle taken in reverse order. So here this is the origin, this is one vector, vector r2, and this is another vector. Now you can observe vector r2 and vector r21 are in the same order. You can observe the tail of vector r21 is at the head of vector r2. So it is said that vector r2 and vector r21 are in the same order, whereas vector r1 is in the reverse order. Here you have a triangle, and vector r2 and vector r21 are in the same order, vector r1 is in the reverse order. So according to triangle of vector addition, vector r2 plus vector r21, the sum of the two vectors acting in the same order is given by the third side of the triangle, which is acting in the reverse order. So r2 plus r21 is equal to vector r1. Or I may also write that vector r21 is equal to vector r1 minus vector r2. One more thing that you have to remember is, you know that when you say a vector will have magnitude and direction. Magnitude is been represented by writing the vector between two parallel lines. This is what you call as modulus. And also that gives you the magnitude, and the direction is been given by the unit vector. So this is how you represent the unit vector, by putting a cap or hat over the head of the vector. So the combination of these two makes a vector. So vector, I have just taken vector r21. Vector r21 may be written as the magnitude of vector r21 and a unit vector of vector r21. Or you may write unit vector r21 as vector r21 by magnitude of vector r21. But just now we wrote that vector r21 is given by r1 minus r2. So I may write that vector r21, unit vector r21 is given by vector r21 by magnitude of vector r1 minus vector r2. This can also be written in such a way. Now we will write down the force acting between the two charges. I will call these points as A and B. This as A and this as B. The origin is O. Now we are interested in writing down the force acting on Q1 due to Q2. So I may write force acting on first charge due to second charge. It's given by K into, you know what is K? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into epsilon r into Q1 Q2 divided by, since the denominator is the square of the distance, so distance is a scalar, so magnitude of vector r21 whole square into, you know that this is a we have to include a unit vector, otherwise it will be a scalar. To make it a vector, we have to include a unit vector into unit vector r21. This is how you write. Now I can just substitute. You know that F12 is K into Q1 Q2 divided by, just now we had learned that R21, magnitude of R21 is given by R1 minus R2. So here you have R1 minus R2. So I may rewrite it as magnitude of vector R1 minus vector R2 whole square into unit vector R21. So we had written unit vector R21 as vector R21 by magnitude of vector R1 minus R2. So vector R21 by magnitude of vector R1 minus R2. So further I may write F12 as K into Q1 Q2 divided by, see here, vector R1 minus R2 whole square into vector R1 minus R2. Both are in magnitude, so you may write magnitude of vector R1 minus vector R2 whole cube. This becomes cube. Here you have square and you have one more here, into vector R21. You know that vector R21 is nothing but vector R1 minus vector R2. So F12 is K into Q1 Q2 divided by vector R1 magnitude of course minus vector R2 whole cube into vector R1 vector R21 may be written as vector R1 minus vector R2. So this is how you represent the force between two charges in terms of position vectors. Mind that R1 and R2 are position vectors. Similarly, if you are writing the force acting on second charge due to the first charge, then it is K into Q1 Q2 divided by, it will be vector magnitude of vector R2 minus vector R1 whole cube. Of course, magnitude of vector R1 minus R2 will be equal to magnitude of vector R2 minus R1 into, here it is very important. See, you know that when you think of the force acting on second charge due to first charge, again second charge will be repelled by first charge because we have considered that these two are like charges. So naturally the displacement vector will be from R1 Q1 to Q2. So it will be R12. So R12 will be R2 minus R1, vector R2 minus vector R1. Students, you can try this. You can take it as assignment, and you please work out this. You calculate you write down the expression for force acting on second charge due to first charge in terms of position vectors. Again, you will have to retrace the steps by noting down the directions. That is very important. You have to understand this basically. You can make use of the triangle law, which I have already told you. Mind that magnitude of force acting on first charge is equal to magnitude of force acting on second charge, but they are opposite in direction. F12 is minus of F21. That means Coulomb's law agrees with Newton's third law. Newton's third law. What does Newton's third law states? For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So yesterday I had told you this. If you consider the force acting on Q1 as action, then the force acting on Q2 will be reaction. So they are equal in magnitude but acting in opposite direction. So this is how you represent force between two charges in terms of position vectors. Mind that this question may be for 5 marks. So it's an important one. You can just practice it. Even I have shown how to make use of triangle law. In exam you don't have to explain all those things. You have to just write whatever I have written here. Okay, but for understanding purpose, the triangle law, knowledge of triangle law is very important. Next to this, we will write down the limitations of Coulomb's inverse square law. See, the first and foremost limitation is that Coulomb's inverse square law is applicable only for stationary point charges. Why? Because see, moving charges also produce magnetic field. This is one of the properties of charges under motion. We had learnt about this. Moving charges produces magnetic field also. Hence, Coulomb's law will not be applicable for moving charges. Secondly, it is not universal. What do you mean by saying that it is not universal? When I say it is not universal, you mean to say that the force between two charges is not only decided by the magnitude of the charges and the distance separating them, but also it depends upon the property of the intervening medium. That's what we call as permittivity. So you know that the permittivity varies from medium to medium. It changes from medium to medium. Hence also the force acting between the same two charges kept at the same distance apart in different media would be different. That is why it is said that Coulomb's inverse square law is not universal. If you remember in first year when you learnt about gravitational force acting between two masses, it was said to be universal because the gravitational force acting between two masses depends only upon the mass of the two objects and the magnitude of the mass of the two particles or objects, and also the distance separating them. It does not depend upon the property of the medium in which the mass or the objects are kept. But here Coulomb's inverse square law is not an universal law because the force acting between the two charges depends upon the property of the medium in which the charges are kept. So third limitation is that it is applicable for distances greater than 10 raised to minus 15 meter. See, if you want to apply Coulomb's inverse square law between two charges, you can apply only when the distance between the two charges is greater than 10 raised to minus 15 meter. That's what you call as 1 Fermi. Because if the distance between two charges is less than 10 raised to minus 15 meter, then the Coulombic force is being dominated by the strong nuclear force. Strong nuclear force is a short range force. It acts only for up to a distance of about 1 Fermi, that is up to 10 raised to minus 15 meter. Hence, if the distance between two charges is less than 10 raised to minus 15 meter, then you will not be able to detect this Coulombic force because there the strong nuclear force will be dominating. Hence, this is one more limitation that Coulomb's inverse square law or Coulombic force can be detected only for distances greater than 10 raised to minus 15 meter. So, these are the three limitations. Coulomb's inverse square law is applicable for stationary point charges only. It is not universal and it is applicable for distances greater than 10 raised to minus 15 meter. So, with this, I think we have almost finished our discussion on charges. Also remember that Coulombic force acts along the center of the line joining the two charges. That means it's what is called a central force. It always acts along the center of the two charges, or it always acts along the line joining the center of the two charges. Hence it is also called as a central force. And also if you have two charges, let me take up an example. You have two charges Q1 and Q2. Q1 and Q2 kept at the points A and B. Now the force acting, if I call the distance as R, the force acting between these two charges is given by K into Q1 q2 by r square. Now if I introduce a third charge here, somewhere here, q3. Now if you ask me what will be the effect of this charge on the force acting between q1 and q2, there will be no change. The presence of third charge will not affect the force acting between the given two charges in a medium. So still it remains to be k into q1 q2 by r square, the same value. So the presence of third charge will not affect the force acting between the given two charges in a medium. So this is the third, this is one more point that you have to remember with respect to charges. So students, till now we have discussed few things with respect to charges. We learned what is a charge, then what do you mean by electrification, different methods of electrifying a body, then we learned about properties of charges. Then we also learnt about a device known as gold leaf electroscope, then about action of points or discharging action of points. Then also we learnt about the very important one, Coulomb's inverse square law. Also we represented the Coulombic force in terms of in vectorial form. Then also we defined the SI unit of charge, Coulomb. Today we discussed about relative permittivity or dielectric constant. Then we represented the force between two charges in terms of position vectors. Then we also discussed about limitations of Coulomb's inverse square law. I think also one more thing is left over, that is we have to learn about principle of superposition. Principle of superposition. So we will write down it. First, we will write down the statement. The resultant force on any charge due to a number of charges is the vector sum of all the forces due to all the charges. See, we shall take up an example. Like, again, we have a coordinate system. You represent different charges here in terms of position vectors. That can be done like this. Let us say you have one charge here, another charge here, another charge here, another charge here, and so on. So I can represent them as, see, if I call this as some q1, then this will be the position vector r1. This is the origin. Let me call this as q2. This is Q3, Q4 and so on. Now what I am interested about is the force acting on Q1 due to all other charges surrounding it. So I may write it as so you know that the force acting on, when I think of the force acting on Q1 due to Q2, initially we will take it as like charges, all of them are like charges, so there will be a force of repulsion. So I should write this as Q1 is been repelled by Q2, so R21. Similarly, Q1 will be repelled by Q3. In fact, R21 is directed in this direction, so this will be R31, is it not? And so on. So I may write that I have just left over Q4 because again it may be written as R41. So I may write this as the force acting, if I call it as F, force acting on first charge due to second charge F12 plus force acting on first charge due to third charge F13 plus the force acting on first charge due to fourth charge F14, etc. I can call it as F1n. See, this is what principle of superposition says. The resultant force, that is F, on any charge due to a number of charges is the vector sum of all the forces due to all the charges. So if I think of F12, I will have to write it as K into Q1, Q2 divided by, so I may write it as R21 square. You know that even if I don't write parallel lines and put the vector symbol, it is called as magnitude into R21 cap, the unit vector, which makes this a vector. Similarly, I may write F13 as K into Q1 into Q3 divided by R13 square into R31 cap and so on. So I may write F as K into Q1 Q2 by R12 square into it is R21 square into R21 cap. Similarly, it is R31 here plus K into Q1 Q2 divided by R31 square into R31 cap plus etc. plus it is K into Q1 Q2 divided by Rn1 square into, I write it here, Rn1 cap and so on. So I can generalize it as F is equal to, see, Q1 is common in all the terms, right? And also you may observe in the denominator it is 1 is common in the second stage. So I may write it as K into Q1 into sigma I runs from 2 to n. I can write it as Qi divided by R I1 square into R I1 cap. See, K is the common term, common one in every term. Q1 is also common in every term. I is the variable which runs from 2 to n. Qi by Ri1 square into Ri1 cap. I is the variable in every term. So this is how you can write principle of superposition. Of course, this will be the resultant force. So I repeat, vector F is the resultant force on Q1 due to all other charges. It is represented as vector F12 plus a vector F13 plus vector F14 etc. vector F1n, where F12 is the force acting on first charge due to second charge, force acting on first charge due to third charge, and so on. So F12 is K into Q1 into Q2 by R21 square into R21 cap. This already you know how we had represented in vectorial form. Similarly, vector F13 is K into Q1 Q3 by R31 square into unit vector R31 cap. Now I have just written it in each term. Vector F equals K into Q1 Q2 by R21 square into R21 cap plus K into Q1 Q3 by R31 square into R31 cap, etc. K into Q1 Q2 by Rn1 square to Rn1 cap. So this may be summarized as vector F equals K into Q1 is common in each term, I is the variable, runs from 2 to n, Qi by Ri1 square into Ri1 cap. So this is principle of superposition. Students, with this we come to the end of discussion on charges. From next session we will discuss on fields, electric fields. Students, I will be posting this the notes of whatever we have discussed till today in the WhatsApp group, and also probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'll give 1 day's gap, we will have a test. I'll just post the questions to the WhatsApp group. You can answer it and just keep it. Later on I will collect from you people. Thank you.